impose one during the Civil War, which was our national debt has been completely paid off, and it was done with tariffs. It was done by President Andrew Jackson, who would use tariffs to reduce the national debt from $60 million to zero by the time he left office. And he did this with no federal income tax. In fact, there was no federal income tax in the United States of America until Abraham Lincoln tried to impose one during the Civil War, which was a 3% tax on income. It lasted 10 years and it was imposed during wartime. And then in 1894, Grover Cleveland tried to levy an income tax with the Wilson-Gorman Tariff Act. And we'll get to why that's so important. But the income tax would be taken to the Supreme Court in Pollock v. Farmers, and they ruled the income tax to be unconstitutional, which is why Congress had to change the Constitution in 1913 so they could levy an income tax. So there was essentially no legal federal income tax the first 137 years America was a country. So under George Washington, there was no federal income tax. Under Andrew Jackson, there was no federal income tax. Under Teddy Roosevelt, there was no federal income tax. But everything would change after the 16th Amendment and the passage of the Revenue Act of 1913, which established a 1 to 6% income tax, and just as importantly, reduced tariffs from 40% to 26%, just like the Wilson-Gorman Tariff Act of 1894, which established an income tax and reduced tariffs, because the powers that be were about to shift American power from the people to international banks and international corporations, who paid most of America's taxes up until 1913. But after 1913, the majority of taxes were paid by people like you and me. The purpose of the federal income tax was always to replace tariffs, so that you and I would replace international corporations as the government's primary source of revenue. And it was tariffs that empowered America to become the manufacturing center of the world before 1913. American steel, American oil, American automotive all became the envy of the world under President William McKinley, who levied a 50% tariff on almost all imports. But when they got rid of tariffs and replaced it with free trade, it became a race to the bottom, a race to outsource American manufacturing to whichever countries offer the cheapest labor, to outsource your jobs to whichever countries offer the cheapest labor, as free trade has always been a race to the bottom. And it is the economic lifeblood of global governance and those who wish to subvert American jurisdiction and sovereignty. And the powers that be will gaslight you and say things like, the cost of tariffs gets passed off to the consumer, which is true in that international companies are forced to raise their prices. But over time, that allows American companies to actually compete with them. And because of that, they start to expand, could build in bulk, and start to get their prices down. And as they expand, they need more labor, and more jobs open up in new manufacturing plants. And you need more managers and more skilled people, and wages start to go up, especially if the flow of immigration into the country is stopped. And then there's more jobs, higher wages, and affordable products. Andrew Jackson paid off America's debt in full with tariffs, and America became the manufacturing center of the world under William McKinley with tariffs. And I don't know about you, but I think it's about time we start putting Americans first again. And you can start by reading your kids my books, Made in America. American printing, American values, American materials, made with American labor. ClassicalLearner.com. What if I told you there has only been one time